one thing that I've gone to realize over the years with AI is really this thing about the wonders that interdisciplinary work can bring. So my team in particular, we were actually one of the few teams that was mixed with, had different disciplines all around.
Welcome to Student Inspire. In this podcast, you will learn tips and tricks from our students who started from zero to successfully build a career in AI. Let's get inspired. Okay, so hello everyone. In this session, we are excited to introduce Clarence. And what's amazing is that Clarence achieved AI4IMPACT Award of Excellence for his work in predicting dengue using AI. And what's also amazing is that he did this during his second year at university. So in this podcast, he will share with you his secrets to AI success. So thank you, Clarence, for joining us.
Yeah, hi, Christian.
Okay. So first of all, let's talk about your first AI4IMPACT Datathon journey. So it's called IoT Datathon 3.0. So you joined our Datathon, right, with 4 other friends, Benita, Richard, Wenhao, and Chui in your second year. And what's surprising is that your team managed to beat many others, including a good number of PhD students during the Datathon. So I think a lot of our audience want to know about your trade secrets to how you did that. But beforehand, can you tell us about your project and your experience in the Datathon itself?
Yeah, sure. So I believe during the Datathon, we were tasked to build a prediction model that was able to predict dengue outbreaks in Singapore 8 weeks into the future. So what was available to us at that point in time was really just the weather station data. So we had, for example, the data about the rain data in Singapore, humidity, and even the dengue cases in Singapore. So by using those information, we were tasked to build something that was able to predict whether there's going to be a potential outbreak 8 weeks in the future, so that mitigations can happen within these 8 weeks to prevent the outbreak from happening. Yeah.
So in that case, right, your project is, just to summarize as well, you are using like neural networks at the time, right? Neural networks.
Yes.
To predict dengue, how many weeks ahead?
It was 8 weeks. Yeah. So we were using a dense layer neural network system to predict dengue outbreaks. Yeah.
Right. And so just to cut the case, like, so what's your trade secrets to success? Like how is your team like managed to actually like beat other participants, right? It was like 200 of them, and like you actually managed to actually become one of the champions as well when it comes to providing quality results of your model.
Right. I think one thing that I've gone to realize over the years with AI is really this thing about the wonders that interdisciplinary work can bring. So my team in particular, we were actually one of the few teams that was mixed with, had different disciplines all around. So we had one of our participants from one of our members from who was a life science student, one who was a business analytics student, one was a mechanical engineering, and one stats and one data science. So we were from everywhere. We were just coming in together to see how we can collaborate, and we didn't actually think about how this interdisciplinary thing will come in the first place, and we were very, very insecure about it at first. But then as the weeks went by, we realized that hey, a lot of the things that each of us could bring was very, very different, especially for this dengue prediction problem. One of the key factors that came into was our member who was a life science student, and the way that he was able to explain the data that we were able to produce was something that I feel that if we didn't have him involved, we wouldn't have understand how works, and we won't be able to use that knowledge and information into building a model. So I think one of the very key difference between our team and many of the other teams were maybe full computer science students or full computer engineering students was that each of us offered different things to the table. And I think the collaboration work that we actually had really helped in allowing us to succeed in the competition. Yeah.
I think that's interesting, right? You mentioned something about interdisciplinary team, right? So diversity actually gives you some kind of this kind of like, diversity of thoughts that fill in each other's loophole as well, right?
Right.
So,
Yeah.
but and then I think maybe just unpack a bit more as well. I think it seems that you are also approaching the problem differently than maybe like,
Mm.
how people typically envision like data science work to be approached, right?
Right.
So you actually approach by understanding the problem. You actually like have life science students who are actually like, maybe like give some insights on
Mm.
why is dengue like, why does dengue appear in the first place, right? So
Mm.
just to, unpack a bit more, like how does that initial knowledge actually help you in building the AI models that is actually like, give outstanding performance?
Right. Okay. So because how most prediction models work, we actually use information from the past to predict
Mm,
what's going to happen in the future.
right.
So the question about how much in the past do you want to go into is a very important question to ask when you build a model.
Mm,
So that's why we were thinking about what is the required number. Do we, if we want to predict 8 weeks, do we just go back 8 weeks in the past to see what happened in the previous 8 weeks, or is there something more to it that affects the 8 weeks of the future? Maybe there's another number that is not 8 but 13 or something like this. So when we were trying different iterations of it, we were trying to make sense of what each number was trying to represent. And what we actually did was that we first, I think as many people, we just try first, we just try our best to put what we think is correct. But after that, once we get a certain sensing about what our model is doing, and based on what we understand is supposed to be happening in real life, we actually use certain numbers that are specific to, for example, like the dengue life cycle, for example. For example, if we want to predict 8 weeks in the future, we take into account how long does the the dengue, the mosquito takes to breed and to reproduce, and how that affects the spread of dengue outbreaks in Singapore. So yeah, so these are the things that we actually considered. And another thing that we actually considered doing was really trying to reduce the dimensions of the number of features that we are using. So one of the ways that we actually did was through this method called clustering. So because the number of stations and the number of stations in Singapore are in the tens, almost to 70 to 80. So what we wanted to do was trying to reduce this number of features as much as possible. So saying that the 70 to 80 stations, but we also have humidity and also rainfall to take into account. And that's only for a single day. So if you want to take into account many days into the past, this will explode into 200, 300 features that we are feeding into the model. So in order to prevent this from happening, what we actually did was to first try to isolate which are the few weather stations that are sort of correlated to one another geographically. So we ran a model that will cluster which are those rainfall data that are very similar. And what we actually saw from that was that those in the same cluster were actually geographically very close to one another in a Singapore context. So maybe the north of Singapore, the south of Singapore. So these were the different clusters that we had. So we realized that actually a lot of these data are repeated because what we realized is that if for Singapore, which is such a small country, the distance between uh, towns even is relatively near. So the rainfall data that they collect will be relatively similar as well. So based on that, we use the cluster data. We use a mean or max, things like this, to use that as the single feature to represent the entire cluster.
Mm,
So by that, we actually reduced it from 80 stations all the way down to maybe 8 clusters. And through that, we're able to make our model more learn features that are more important and relevant to the model itself.
right, right. I think
Yeah.
I like I really like the approach of like, going through like investigation, understanding the problems, like, trying to investigate on the event is why is it happening, what is the correlation, right? Because a lot of the common misunderstanding is that people start with building models when it comes to AI work instead of like investigating the data, right? So
Yes.
I think what you're trying to say right now, I think that I hope the audience also can catch as well, is that actually Clarence team, how it makes it better is that they do actually like intensive work to understand the problem, to investigate the occurrence, right? The correlation between like multiple events together. And then after that, he tried to come up with the models that's not so fat. In fact, like that's why he used the dimensionality as well to come up with better predictions. So I think that's an insightful actually thought process when you try to build try to solve problems using AI lah. So just in a general
Mm.
terms. Okay.
Yeah, so I think just to add also, like the data cleaning part about any AI project is one of the most important phase of your project. The prediction model is what is exciting. Yes, you can see the results come out. Oh wow, we can predict very accurately. But the cleaning part and taking out what is important, that is the most important, because as one of my lecturers will always tell me, if you pass in data that is not necessarily the best, your results will come out to be not necessarily the best as well. So this part about cleaning the data and using what you need, not what is available, is very, very important. Yeah.
Right. So that's a really great advice actually. So I think let's move on, right? I think this is also like you've shared your achievement as well, but I think some people would like to know as well, right? After the data ton, after you have that experience, right? And then they also know that actually like at the end of the day you are also being awarded to the Defense Science Scholarship, which is a very prestigious award in Singapore. So tell us about your journey, right? From let's say like getting this project, this dengue project, to finally being awarded the scholarship. Like, what is the journey like for you?
Right. So I think right after achieving the competition, I was in the midst of looking for an internship for my summer. So one of the few things that I wanted to do was to be able to see how I can really extend this newfound knowledge that I had about AI to other fields. And in particular, for me, I was always very fascinated with military. So I wanted to see how what I've learned can be applied to the defense science sector. So I think this really just intuitively led to me joining the company in summer. And I think one of the few things that was they went well during the interview process was me being able to share how this competition or this project was actually able to sort of bring value to the organization that it was will do the AI the data ton projects to come together. I think that was very into, because I believe that his team at that point in time was we had two engineers from other universities, and I think he wanted somebody from a different discipline to come in and give a different point of view of what on the pick that we were going to the project that we were going to do. So where I told him that I was a statistician and I'm a data scientist, and I shared the value of how different using different disciplines to come in. I think it really struck something in him that to say that like I really want this person. I remember even during the interview, after we had an interview, he was just telling me casually, say, if actually you want the position, I'm glad to offer it to you. And we haven't even done the interview yet. So I think really finding value in what you can bring to an organization is really what defines you as a very confident individual, as someone who can bring much value and insight into the organization. Yeah.
Right. And you talk something that is also very important as well, which is the way you present basically like your skills or what you've done as value, meaning that so unpack, I mean help our audience understand a bit more about like what's difference between like when what is the basically the difference between like just sharing about your experience and then versus like someone who can actually who can actually like tell them that, oh, I can actually bring value to the company. So
Right.
like, yeah,
Right.
what does value mean? And maybe help us unpack for our audience here.
Right. I think really knowing what you are good at, I think that's very crucial. Knowing what you are good at and knowing how you can contribute what you're good at to the field is very crucial. Because many of the times when we share about our past experiences, it's very hard for new people to relate to how can I use this person's skill in this context to apply to what I'm concerned about my new context. So it's hard for employers to try to make that link for themselves based on what you have shared for your experience. But if you are able to tell them and you understand the problem that your employer is facing, and you're able to share how in certain areas that you feel that might be lacking or might be able to have a different point of view and share how you can, if you are able to apply and share those insights to him. I think that will really give them a new perspective about, hey, like for example, I think at the end of the internship, I was just having a chat with my supervisor, and one of the things that he shared with me was that for historically, he's always been employing engineers because it's an engineering field, but he never saw how a statistician or data science student come in and give such a different point of view, to a point where we created solutions that uses both fields together. Yeah, so I think because many of times people we are very comfortable in what we know, and I think that's very logical to be able to go with, like for example, if you're in the engineering field to employ engineers, but I think if you're able to step forth and share with employers like how you feel that as a statistician or as someone in your own field can be able to contribute greatly to the organization, I think that will really set you apart from everybody else. Yeah.
That's actually I mean, in terms of like maturity of thought, that gives you already like a step ahead compared to most candidates. They are still at school, so that actually is really nice as well. So let's talk about the future of AI, right? So maybe in your own words, like what future, like I think it's more like future of you as well. What future do you see yourself in AI work, like, and how do you see yourself like get involved in AI work in the future?
Yeah, I think for myself, something that I'm really quite passionate about is seeing how AI can be used to impact people around me. So be it my community or be it even the country as a whole. So I think for myself, I would like to be able to go back into projects and fields like what I did during the data talk, which was really to try to solve a real life crisis or problem. And I think over the past few months, I think what has been happening around the world with COVID is something that AI can really step forth and try to help in a sense. And I think right now the work that's been done is really quite incredible. But I think a lot as if more people actually come into it and try to find new solutions to probably early detection or even try to find possible new traces through AI. I think that is something that we can use this knowledge or this skill in AI to really extend it to impact not just people that are familiar with AI, but even people who are not familiar with AI, and to really change their lives in this process. Yeah, so for myself in particular, I think some of the fields that I would like to go into or projects that I would like to go into in the future will really be more on the social impact side of it, and to see how this kind of prediction models and like inferences that we make on a daily basis in our classroom can be actually be applied to different problems and scenarios. Yeah, but keep in mind that I think one of the things that we always need to know as statisticians or even in the data science community is that not every problem requires the same solution. Yeah, we cannot always take the same solution and apply to different problems. We have to always go back first to see what our problem is and what our data actually presents itself to us. And from there, create relevant and specific models that are suited to the need. Yeah.
Yeah. So I guess that comes from also like experience as well, right? Where you undergo like the process
Definitely,
from building investigating the data to building the model. So yeah, that's actually definitely a good advice. And yeah, I'm really glad you're actually like passionate in actually applying AI for social impact.
yeah.
So do you have any words of encouragement for those who wants to start their journey in AI?
Yeah, I think if I were to share how I was feeling back when I just started my journey as an AI, I think I was someone who felt very uncertain or very insecure about, wow, AI is such a big field, and it's very complicating. Only people who are very, very smart will be able to go into the field of AI. But I think as long as as long as you have a desire to want to learn AI, and if you have this, I think the most important is you have the desire to want to do something good with what you're going to be learning. Problem in mind that you want to solve, you have an issue in mind that you want to overcome. I think that is a good starting point enough to want to to start your journey as a AI engineer or scientist. So yeah, I think that one advice I'll give any person who is trying to start going to AI will be really to enjoy the process of learning and always be inquisitive to ask why certain things work in that way. Yeah, I think that having that mindset and always asking questions will be very, very relevant to you understanding the bigger picture at the end of the day. Yeah.
That's true. Because AI also is a new field that is also ever evolving as well. So having that habit to always ask why and to have a direction on the passion that how you want to impact the world, I think that will be very helpful to continue your journey in learning AI as well. Okay. So thank you so much, Clarence, for sharing your experience. So
Yeah, no worries.
yeah, see you again. Okay.
Yeah, see you.
Bye.